Irashaimase! Hello and welcome to Fitaurus Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fitaurus. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this Saturday we have Fitaurus Sai, the latest M2 ShotTriggers release. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. From legendary Shoot 'em Up developer Cave, Fitaurus released to Japanese arcades in 1998. However, it would not see a console release until the ShotTriggers release in December of 2019. It's now available for the Nintendo Switch and the PlayStation 4, though at this point only in the Japanese region. However, it does seem that there's a chance we might get an international release, as there is an English version of the trophies list available on the network right now. So here's hoping, although there hasn't been anything announced at this point. So, right off the bat, I can say if you're a fan of cave shooters or M2 ShotTrigger releases, of which this is the first one on the Switch, and this is also the version we're looking at, then this is one I can highly recommend. It should be part of your collection. So, what kind of game do we have here? What kind of presentation has M2 put on this one? Diving into the game itself, we're taken to a game select mode. Here we can select between the original arcade version and the updated 2019 version. So there's a couple different remixes in both modes that we can look at. And this menu, unfortunately, is one you can't get back to unless you exit out the game and start, but you can select these game modes from a menu within the game itself. So for the Fitaurus Sai, which is the version we'll be looking at today, you've got Arcade Plus, Super Easy, Custom, which you can change all the settings yourself, and then there's a bonus game mode that M2 created for this release, Yodi no Heya, which is a really interesting kind of, not really like life sim, but you've got this like room where you can put the characters in and decorate, and then it's got all these fun little missions to take with the game itself. I'll get to that in a second, but it's definitely something that makes this release extra special. So today we'll be looking at the super easy mode, as it's easier to play it that way and still talk about the game itself. This game is for use in Japan only. Forget that. Don't worry about it. So here we've got the emulation fired up. You've got a really nice marquee on the left and right sides of the screen. Once we begin the game, those will be replaced by the usual M2 ShotTrigger gadgets. So you can start by putting credits into the machine, and the number of credits you can have in the machine are dependent on how many times you've played through the game. The more you play, the more credits you'll have available to use. Starting the game, we're taken to our player select. There are 3 characters that are available in the base game: Yusuke, JB 5th, and Yodi. And then there's a new character that was added to Fitaurus Sai, Alice Master. So Yusuke is probably the most basic, so he's the one that I'll be showing the game off with. After you select your character, you're given this tutorial which just shows you how to use your attacks and your defense. And we dive right in. So one thing that's important to note, each of the 3 main characters has a different route that they start the game with. Depending on which character you start with, you'll be playing through the first 3 stages in a different order. However, if you pick the new character, Alice, you'll be able to play through the game in, rather, the first 3 stages in any order you desire. So, what kind of gameplay do we have here? Well, right off the bat, it's a vertical scrolling bullet hell. Very much the normal kind of cave wheelhouse that you've probably are familiar with if you've played their titles. Although, unlike a lot of cave shooters, we're a human flying around, an Esper, a psychic, with our psychic abilities. What kind of psychic abilities do we have? Well, obviously we can fly, but we also have a couple different shots that we can use. So we've got our main shot, which is going to be your primary damage dealer, and then our power shot, which is used for both dealing heavier damage, although depending on which character it can be harder to aim, and it's also integral to the combo mechanism present in the game. It's possible to power up our shots from level 1 all the way to level 5, and once again, that's also integral to being able to use the combo system that the game has. So how does the combo system work? It's really interesting. It's dependent on hitting the enemies with your full barrage of power shots. So you only have a limited number of power shots you can fire at any given time. If you hit an enemy with all of those shots, then you'll increase the chance for a times 16. And this information is displayed on the left here with the shot triggers, or rather the shot trigger gadgets that we have, with the section for Yaksha information. So we're fighting an evil organization called the Yaksha, and that's why the enemy information is called Yaksha information, which is led by the evil psychic Mrs. Gata, who wants to take over the world, kind of like typical thing there, and has amassed this like incredible army of psychics and military might. It seems a little bit unlikely that that could be the case, but that's the story we have here. Anyway, back to the comboing mechanism. So it's possible to get a times 16 multiplier off of the enemies if you time your defeat of them correctly with hitting them with a full barrage of your power shot, and then defeating them with your main shot, and that will start at times 16, which is possible to chain into other enemies. In that times 16, you'll get significantly more items dropped from the enemies, which initially start out as power-ups. Those power-ups will become point items, and if we collect enough point items, which we actually are about to do, then we'll start getting energy from enemies that we can use to refill our energy gauge, and potentially also earn 1-ups. So it's a really neat system, that the way that it evolves there. And as far as even from an arcade perspective, you can have some idea of how to manipulate that system. But although admittedly as hard as the action sometimes gets, looking and seeing where you happen to be with all the various like gadgets that track this, thanks to the M2 gadgets on the side of the screen, it can be tricky to actually look over and read that information. But all of that is like really helpfully laid out on the left of the screen. The right of the screen displays our stage information, where we happen to be moving throughout the stage, and once we get to the boss, information about the boss themselves. So we're playing the game in super easy mode. So what that does is A, the enemy patterns aren't as difficult, and B, we have an auto barrier. So when we get shot, we'll use up a quarter of our guard barrier, which is a meter displayed at the bottom of the screen, and use a quick burst. However, it's possible to use the guard barrier of your own choice at any time, as long as you have meter. You'll be able to charge it up to release a really powerful beam attack, and not only that, any enemy shots that happen to touch your barrier will become the item that you're currently getting. If it's the power-up item, then you'll get the power-up item. A great way to speed your way from low power to high power very, very quickly. And then once you happen to be fully leveled up, then you can get the point items. And even use it to help power itself up if we happen to be in the point where we're collecting the energy items. So it's just a really interesting scoring system, and that makes this one kind of unique in my mind to a lot of cave shooters. Oh, so one thing I haven't mentioned, with the normal shot and the power shot, it is possible to be firing those both simultaneously, although with most of the espers, they'll stop firing their main shot to fire the power shot. With Yusuke here, he'll fire both simultaneously. He is the best damage dealer of the 4 espers that are available in the game, though he has no spread to his shot, so it is a little harder to hit all the enemies on the screen. Protect the world even if the future of the world is uncertain. So this is the last Shoot 'em Up Saturday before Christmas 2019. Generally, I like to cover a title that's really Christmas themed, and while not Christmas themed, at least the setting of Esporido Sai is right around Christmas time. As the mall scene here shows, that's starts off with some Christmas decorations. There's some snow, and kind of like the credits music when you finish the game is kind of Christmassy as well. It's a little weird that way. So, as usual, I do want to say Merry Christmas to everybody that's watching this particular video or any of my videos, and if they happen to just be stopping by. So this is basically what we have here for Esporido. I've kind of covered the basics. There's a lot of depth to it though, but I do want to show off the new game mode that was added to it, Yodi no Heya. So we're going to jump to that real quick. And you can pull that up once you're in the game itself from the start menu, which is actually on the minus button rather than the plus button on the Switch controller. It's a little confusing that way. The plus button you use to actually start the game with the credits. Anyway, this is Yodi's room. Here we can decorate this room and see my really nice festive border that I have there. We have pets which we can feed. And we also have these tickets, which we earn through all these missions that we can do. And what do we use those tickets for? Once you have some tickets, you can use those tickets in this draw here to get items. Those items will either be tickets that we can use to feed the pets, or items that we can use to decorate the rooms. And hey, we even got some more holiday stuff, so let's take a quick moment to decorate the room a little bit more. Bam! Super festive. So, one thing I really like about this mode is when you start it, you do pick one of the three espers, main espers, to be in the room itself. Since it's Yodi's room, I picked Yodi. But you've got all these fun little missions. You've got tutorials, which help you learn how to play the game. You've got these scoring techniques, which help you learn how to get up to those 16 multipliers and chain them as well. And then you've just got challenges where you can do the story course, just certain sections like stage 1B. Then we can pick which mode we want to complete it in. We can do super easy, pet support, no barrier. So the pets add bonuses. Oh, so this is Yodi, and her attack has a really wide spread to it. Her power shot is similar to Yusuke's, where it will kind of angle in the direction you're aiming, but it's overall easier to aim than his is, which makes it a little bit easier to build up large combos. And that's that mission complete. It's just the small bite-sized section of the stages. So if you want to practice, this is a great way to do it. And the first time you complete them, you'll earn these bonuses, which we can rank up our espers, as well as get more tickets to, get more furniture, be able to feed our pets. So we can feed the cat here, which is our, we'll power up our power shot. Yes! Miki Neko is now level 4. Our main shot is the dog. The bird is for the guard barrier. It'll slowly build up your guard barrier over time. And then the hamster is your hit size. It's just a really fun little mode which allows you to play through all these various challenges of the game itself, or go through the tutorials. Some of the tutorials are just ridiculously simple, where we're just using, for this one we just have to clear the area, and we got rapid fire. This is the stage that Yodi starts with, although you see it in the second stage of Yusuke's path. We can build up. Oh, one thing I completely forgot to mention, probably a little bit late in the video. So when you're rapid firing your main shot, you move around faster than when you're holding it down. It does give you kind of more of a focus movement. At any rate, there we have it. Espiritu Sai served up for your enjoyment. So this is definitely a title that like I said at the beginning of the video, I heartily recommend. It's one that if you're a fan of cave shoot-em-ups and of M2's Shot Trigger series, it's a no-brainer. But even if you're not necessarily a fan of those two particular series, it's still one that I can recommend, with one caveat. So the Japanese price point is relatively high. It's just shy of 5,000 yen on the Nintendo eShop and the PlayStation Store. So that basically translates to roughly $50 US for either, let's see, console. And if you pick up the physical releases, then it's even more. The game itself is relatively short at just 5 stages, even if there are multiple characters to play the game with. So that being the case, it's not as easy of a recommend as other titles are, just like based off the price alone. So those are my primary minus flavors. It's just a shorter title, and the initial price point I feel is a little high for the amount of game that is there. As far as plus flavors though are concerned, the pixel art in this game is just gorgeous, and I feel it performs really well. For being the first Shot Trigger release on the Nintendo Switch, aside from like a little bit of a longer initial loading time, it just performs flawlessly. I really enjoy the game's complex scoring system, the addition of the Yodi's room, and just the general Shot Trigger treatment that M2 has once again presented to us. Well, that'll just about wrap it up for this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, I want to thank you so much for joining me this week, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Merry Christmas.